Welcome everybody to another CTC webinar over lunch. We're going to try and keep today's presentation to about 30 minutes. We're going to be talking today about Spreadsheet Link and Schedule Excel, specifically for the creation of residential unit summaries. This is a question we've had many times recently by a number of our clients who've been trying to achieve something very similar to this, and for their own nefarious reasons. Maybe it's departmental summaries, maybe it's residential unit summaries, maybe it's anything you want. Area summaries, gross building square footage summaries, anything can be done using this exact technique today, provided you've got the correct parameters within Revit. I'm going to show you how to do that. So first of all, let's talk about what some of the issues are and why people are running into some problems with generating these unit summaries. First off, Revit doesn't really have a means to execute complex maths and then present that back to you in a meaningful way. So for example, in a lot of cases, one value may depend on a total of something else. In this case today, unit area totals by floor, or just total unit areas, or unit counts by floor, and then unit count totals. And perhaps presenting all four of these in a meaningful way in some kind of schedule type layout. Revit just can't calculate this beyond simple totals. It can tell you you've got 17 of these, or you've got a total of this. But it doesn't do a real good job of giving you that information broken out by floor, by unit type, with counts, with count totals for the whole building. There's a lot of things it just doesn't do very well. Revit's great at getting you totals in the first place. It's great at giving you schedule-based data. So don't get me wrong, Revit schedules are fantastic in most cases, but when you want to go a little bit outside the norm of the structure that it gives you, it has a bit of difficulty. So let's talk about the two tools we're going to be bringing in today and how you can create more powerful schedules using outside tools. Step one, we're going to leverage Spreadsheet Link. We're going to extract values that we care about to a spreadsheet. We're going to leverage a template file, and I'm going to put that in quotes there. You can see that up on the screen, template file in quotes, because I have pre-canned or pre-created a layout that I want to use. I'm also going to be then taking that template to calculate out some totals based on the values that I extract from Revit out to the spreadsheet. And then I'm going to run some additional math-based results on that. Now, I've then created for myself a pretty picture, a nice layout that's going to be used eventually in my document set. Again, for today's example, it's a residential unit summary for a residential type project. But you can do this for a number of things: workstation summaries, gross building square footages, area type analysis, things like that. You could do this for a lot of different reasons using this exact same technique. Solution number two, let me get it to there, here we go, is Schedule Excel. This one here is going to let me take a spreadsheet that I've created in Excel and link that into a Revit schedule using a very easy workflow to create and update these links in the future. It allows me to retain the formatting of Excel, and then it also lets me display the result of whatever the maths were that I ran in Excel in the first place. So it shows me the result, not the actual formulas. So I can do complex calculations in Excel, create a really nice layout there. Don't judge my layout today. I didn't do high design. I just kind of created this based on a couple of ideas. But you could create a really nice layout yourselves and then take that nice layout and bring that into Revit as a schedule. So with that, let's jump over to Revit. Now, before I jump into Revit, I want to point this out. I am paying as close attention as I can to the questions sheet over there in your GoToWebinar pane on the side of your screen. If you have questions, please type them in while I'm talking. I am more than happy to answer your questions live while they pop up. So don't be shy, ask away. I'll try to answer as we go. All right, so what I have here is a basic floor plan. This is actually the advanced Revit architecture sample project, which I have saved as to create for myself a little example today. I'm doing this on purpose so you can see it doesn't really matter what your floor plan is, what type of information you're working with. You can use pretty much anything in Revit as long as you can get the right properties out. So what properties and parameters am I going to be working with today? I've taken a few of the default rooms here in my residential unit summary plan for all three floors. I've got level 1, 2, and 3, so I have a 3-story structure here that I'm going to play with. And I've taken a few of the rooms and I've given them custom names, like a single bedroom option D, or unit type D, or a single bedroom type C, or a studio type room. Now my goal here is to figure out how many studio rooms I have, how many studio twos specifically I have on a floor-by-floor basis, what the average across my entire project unit area is, and then what my project total unit area is, and how many studio twos I have across the whole project, and then total square footage of all units in my project. That's my original goal here. That's what I want to achieve by getting this unit summary that I'm working with today. And what I'm using, again, is the level that rooms are based on. If I click on any one of these rooms out here, every single room as you place it will have a level. Every room that I place, I know has a name, and so I'm using the name property. You could just as easily use department or occupant or whatever other parameters you want to add. Anything can work as long as you know that that parameter value is the one that you're trying to work with as one of your comparisons. And then finally, I'm also using the area. And in this case today, I have converted this project over to square feet to be imperial units of measure. It does not matter. The template that I'm using and the workflow that I'm working with today can work interchangeably, metric and imperial. So if you happen to be listening to me internationally or you work a lot on metric projects, this process is no different. In fact, I set up my final file today originally as metric, converted to imperial to test, worked flawlessly, same exact information. Information came out as I expected it to. So let's get on to building this up. I'm going to start from scratch today and show you what I began with when I was preparing this presentation, and then I'm going to show you my end game at where I got so I can make this process as repeatable as possible. So first step, I went to Revit Express Tools up here on the ribbon, and I happen to have the BIM Project Suite out here that I'm working with today. The two tools that I'll be working with is Spreadsheet Link and Schedule Excel. I may touch later on Spreadsheet Link Express. That'll depend if we have time or not. Again, I'm trying to keep this down to about 30 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this back up on the ribbon, and to avoid any kind of confusion, I'm going to pull a bunch of these tools off to the side so you don't have to see them. They'll get out of the way. You can ignore those. I'm paying attention exclusively to the Project Suite and the Spreadsheet Link up here. All right, that's the tool that I care about. First, I'm using this once again to extract my data. My step one, open up Spreadsheet Link. My step two, before I do anything, is I'm going to open up an Excel file that has sort of the layout that I want to work with, that I ultimately want to present back in Revit in the future. So I'm going to open up a spreadsheet out here that I've already prepared. It's called the Residential Unit Summary XLSX file, basic Excel file that has a simple layout. You might even take one of your already existing unit summaries that you have in use in your firm right now and leverage that. It works perfectly. This is one that I sort of mocked up from a couple of different client ideas that came through. So I have a kind of default project name, some basic project notes, the fact that this is a unit summary, some basic levels, which coincidentally I happen to have matched up with my project for today, a couple of typical unit types that I use regularly, which you've already seen out here, like 1BRC. That's one of my unit names up here. And then what I want to do is get the average area calculated out. I want to figure out how many I have per floor. So this is going to be used for quantification of how many Studio 2s, for example, I have on 1, 2, and 3. Down here, I want to know how many total units I have across my entire project, and then what my total unit area is across the project, which could effectively be the average times my total could be that number. There's a number of ways of calculating this out. I'm going to be using all Excel fun math to make this happen. But first, let's get this information extracted and see how I can set this up as a template for future use. So I'm going to pull up Spreadsheet Link over here after I've opened up this spreadsheet in the background, and I'm going to start the process of extracting out my rooms. So here's my rooms. I'm going to go ahead and grab that category and pull it across. You could just as easily use areas or spaces if you're doing this for MEP purposes. There's a lot of other reasons you might want to use this. You can pull roofing areas, finished floor data, all kinds of information out by just choosing the category and then presenting it back in some kind of nice table in Excel. I'm going to go ahead and extract this out. It takes it a second to pull this information across. It's thinking about all my rooms. It has one entry per room in my project, and I'm now going to choose my fields. So for my fields, I want to choose the name, I want to choose the level that that room is on, so I can use those two for comparisons. And I also want to grab the area. Again, for your purposes, you can use any parameters that are available here for your data extraction. Now, one key thing for me to be able to actually do math on this later on and total up some values, I need to strip away the unit suffix here of square foot. By default, the spreadsheet link tool is automatically giving you the value and whatever Revit's current unit is as a suffix, just like it would in the properties window of Revit. Well, I don't want that suffix. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide that unit symbol. It puts square footage up here, and this is where I've made it so it's completely interchangeable with any units of measure. It could be square meters, could be whatever you want up here. Doesn't matter, because what I'm effectively extracting is just some numbers, and I'm interpreting what those numbers mean, whether it's square foot or square meters, or if I just call it out as area. I intentionally genericized my sheet over here, calling it out as total unit area as opposed to square feet. Up here, my average area, if I wanted to suffix it with square foot or square meters or whatever, I could do that in the data that I put in here, but I'm genericizing it on purpose so that it doesn't really matter what units you're working with at this point. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this out to Excel to prepare this data to make it reusable, basically. So I'm going to run save right now, save. And I'm going to call this out as residential unit summary, and I'm going to put a suffix on this of today's date. So what is it, 2016-02-23, I believe, today. Let me just double check. Yep, 23rd. So this is going to be the file that I'm saving out. This happens to be in my Spreadsheet link residential unit summary folder. Any of you who want my sample files later, feel free to write me. Go ahead and email our marketing team, ask for it. I'll be more than happy to give you this file here or even my base file and my settings file if you want to play with this yourself. It's pretty universal how this works. I'm not using any custom parameters in today's presentation. So I'm going to save this out. It wants to know if I want to open this up in the default application of my computer, which in my case happens to be Excel. I'm going to go ahead and answer yes to this. This is going to open up Excel, and this gives me all the power of Excel, all the heads-up display up here, all that kind of fun jazz. Now what I'm going to do for my template here, this template file right here, the 2016-02-23 file, I'm going to strip out all of the data except for a single row just for the template purposes. That's going to help make this reusable and a bit more intelligent. It's going to help me make it so I can write my lookups over here on sheet 1 and do whatever I want. So I'm going to go ahead and unlock this. To unlock it, you go to the Review tab, you unprotect the sheet. And I'm doing this because normally if I try to go in here and delete these rows, it's going to pop up and say this cell or chart is protected. So I have to unprotect it. So I'm going to use the unprotect sheet option, enter the super secret password of all lowercase password. That's the default password for a spreadsheet link when it saves out information coming from Revit. You can change that if you want to. I'm going to enter that, and that way I can go through and I can select all the data for all my rooms, and I can delete it. There, gone. I'm also going to take the data in this first row right here, and I'm going to clear the contents. So it's just going to make it nothing. I'm going to go over here to my sheet just because I want to rename this real quick and call this residential unit. If I spelled that right, I did not. Residential unit summary. This way it'll have the right name when it comes into Revit later. So I've got my residential unit summary pretty picture over here. I've got my rooms tab. I'm going to stay over here in the rooms tab so you can see how this is going to work in a minute. I'm going to save this file. I'm going to shut it down. So I'm doing this so that when I set up my saved settings in the future, I'll be able to use that now as my template. Let me show you what I mean. If I go here to Save Settings, there's an option in Revit called Advanced Save. I use this option so users don't have to remember to open that spreadsheet ahead of time. My Advanced Save can know already that it's supposed to use a template worksheet. I'm going to browse for where that is. It's this one right here, the 2016-02-23 Excel file. This is my new template worksheet that I want to use. When I started today, I used this one down below. I'm going to use this one now. I'm also going to tell it every time I run this, if I happen to be running Spreadsheet Link Express, that's that extra button I told you we might run if we have time, I'm going to tell it to go ahead and create a new spreadsheet when running this. what it'll do if I look at this little information over here, it uses the project name, the name of the settings file I'm about to save here in a minute, and it puts a date timestamp on the file, so it actually writes a brand new file every single time I run this if I wanted to. I don't have to have it do that, but you can. And for today's example, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Here on the folder option, I'm going to tell it where I want this to save. This is why I'm telling it to make a new file every time, so I'm not overwriting the same file over and over again. I'm going to go ahead and drop this on my computer in my sample data folder out here, so that would be desktop content, I believe. Yep. And Revit Express Tools Workflows, and here in my Spreadsheet link folder for Residential Unit Summary. That's where I want it to drop. That's the same folder where I pulled this spreadsheet in the first place. I'm basically telling it to save a new file here when I run my settings file at the same time. It's going to go ahead and do that right away when I'm using Spreadsheet Link Express. So I'm going to go ahead and save this somewhere. I've already got a settings file out here, but I'm going to give it a new name. I'm going to go ahead and call this out the same thing, 2016-02-23, so you know exactly which settings file you're getting if you decide to ask for this from me. I'll go ahead and save that, so it saves my settings. So what does that do? I'm going to go ahead and close down Spreadsheet Link entirely. I already saved my settings, so it wants to know if I want to save it again. I'm going to say no. I've already done that. So what is your user's workflow going to look like? Well, they're going to go Spreadsheet Link, maybe, load settings from an outside file. They'll choose the settings file here, and when they click open, instead of them having to have remembered to open up that spreadsheet in the first place, when they click open, it already opens it up. It already has the Residential Unit Summary tab down here. It already pulls rooms, and it pulls the parameters in the same order, name, level, area. Because I already had this tab out here, it asks if I want to overwrite it. And when I answer yes, it basically fills out this tab. So to this point, we now have a Residential Unit Summary tab and data extracted from Revit in a consistent way. That's fantastic. Now what I want to do is I want to take this to the next level, and I want to have this tab here look up information off of this tab, figure out how many of something I have, and figure out what total information I have. That's the next part. Now I'm going to do this all from scratch here to show you exactly what my background map is doing for each of the cells, so you have an exact idea of what it is I've done. So you can make this repeatable for yourself. I'm not going to do any smoke and mirrors today. I'm going to do everything live in front of you. Now I'm going to do this from Excel because that makes my life easier. I'm going to start by doing it here on this live. Let me save this out first. So we'll call this out as test. So I'm going to save this out as test, and I'm going to open it up in Excel. I'm saving my data out so that I have the ability to actually see results from the Rooms tab. Ultimately, I would normally do this in my template file, the 2016-02-23 file, not suffixed with test, so that it would be there the next time a person opens it up. But for now, so you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to do it right here. Let's start out by just figuring out how many rooms I have that's a Studio 1 on the entry level. I don't know if I have any. I think I have. If I look through here, entry level, yeah, Studio 1. I have at least one Studio 1, and I have at least one Studio 2, and I have at least one Studio 3. Actually, I've got two Studio 1s. But I don't want to be the person who goes through and tallies those up. I want Excel to do it for me automatically. So I'm going to write a special formula here that's going to go through and count from the Rooms tab how many Studio 1s I have on level 1. There's a special type of formula here. It's called sum product in Excel. It's pretty cool. It does some cool things. It can actually automatically add things up for you or multiply things for you. For right now, what I'm going to do is make this count how many I have by doing it this way. So I'm going to go equals. That's how you start out a formula in Excel. Sum product. If I start typing out sum product, you'll actually see it pop up here in heads up. If you happen to know your formulas by heart, you can do all of this work live in the Spreadsheet link Excel, spreadsheet window. I happen to want to show you exactly what this is doing, so I'm going to do it here in Excel. Otherwise, I would normally do it directly inside of the Spreadsheet link tool. So as I do sum product, it shows me what it's looking for. A couple of arrays. I can have as many as I want for this map. The first one is required. After that, they're all optional. That's what those little brackets mean. It means it's optional. So for my first array for sum product, I'm going to tell it to look for something that meets certain criteria. It's almost like an if-then statement. I'm telling it, if this value equals something else, then count it as something or do something with it. To make it just do a count, or to say, yes, I have it, or to give it a 1, basically, I'm going to do dash dash. It's a special thing. Anything I do inside of those open and close parentheses there is going to basically count as 1 and only 1. So I'm going to go ahead and say dash dash, and I'm going to say if the, let's do the studio name first, or the unit name first. So I'm going to say if this value equals anything over here from my rooms tab in the column C. That's the first thing I'm going to do. So if it takes this whole column of all these names, and it's looking through all the values, and it's comparing it to whether or not it matches Studio 1 as the name. That's the first thing it's going to do. So if it equals that, that's my first criteria. Where did my information go? Residential. If B5 equals, no, it's supposed to be rooms. Hang on. Rooms. All right, I screwed it up because I clicked between tabs before hitting enter. Let me try this again. Delete this out. If B5, this value here, equals rooms, column C. All right? If it equals that, go ahead and count it as 1. I'm going to go ahead and put close parentheses here and hit enter just so that it does it. So all told, in my entire project, I happen to have right now 5 Studio 1s. That's not what I want here, though. I want all the 5 Studio 1s that also exist on the entry level. So I have to add something else. I'm going to add another piece of criteria here, comma, that gives me a second array here, dash dash. So again, I want to get another count. Open parenthesis, if it equals the level name right here, if this equals anything coming out of my level column. All right, let me hit enter here. So this now gives me 2. So I have 2 Studio 1s on the entry level, happen to be the 2 that we saw. So again, some product is taking this, it's giving me a 1. It's multiplying that by this value over here, which is also a 1. Again, product is a value of multiplication here. So this is counting up as, yes, it has it per row, it looks, times the 1 when it matches up to be the same thing. So anytime there's a row that has Studio 1 and entry level, it gives me a 1. Then it goes to the next row, and it looks again. Is the next row Studio 1? No, it's not. Well, that gives me a 0 for the first one. It might be entry level as 1, but when it takes the 2 values that it finds here and multiplies them together, if either of these is not correct, if it doesn't match either of these criteria, it gives me a 0 for that one. When it multiplies these 2 values together, I effectively get a 0. So what I'm doing is getting yes or no, true or false, basically. Does it match? And true or false, does it match? So if it matches, it's 1. If it doesn't match, it's 0. Hopefully that kind of makes a little sense. If you want more information about that in the future, call me. I'll be more than happy to walk you through it. I've got a little bit of time left today. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter here. That gives me 2. Now I want to do one more special thing here. I'm going to copy this down and across to all of these cells so I can have it automatically match up the column and row that it's supposed to be looking at. To do that, I want to make sure that as I'm dragging down, it doesn't change which reference is here. So I'm going to put a $sign so it does B for my row, or for my column, sorry. So as I drag it across, it'll automatically update D, E, F, G, and everything else. And then as I'm dragging down, I want to make sure it's updating my row number, so 9, 10, and 11. But as I'm dragging across, I don't want it to update this. I'm going to put a $sign here so it doesn't update that. I also want to make sure I don't change my cell references here, so I'm going to $sign in front of each of those, and that will give me the ability to drag this thing all over the place. So I'm going to drag it down. This one, if you take a look at this now, it says B5 equals CC, still B5, that's fine, but then it goes A10, so it's giving me the second floor option, and then the third floor option down here. Now I'll take these and I'll drag these all the way across, and I'm starting to get, after a little bit here, updated references for each of the unit types per floor going on out there. It's giving everything. Down here I could use just a subset of this. I could take the equal sum product right here and get a total count of all of this. Just copy this right here. I could do basic math and say sum these together, sum these 3 columns. That would work fine as well. Or I can go down here and just paste that value in and put one more close parenthesis there and get the total. So I can drag this across, same references here. There we go. It's going to give me everything across the entire project. So I've got 13 of these Studio 2s across everywhere inside of here. Next, let's go through and get the area, the total, and the average. I can also, by the way, so over here I can say, give me all of the units that are on level 1. I could just total up that information. Or I can go equals sum of all of this and close that off. All right, so I get 11 there. I get 12 and 14. So I know how many of those residential units I have per floor. I know how many of them I have per project. And then I can get some other totals elsewhere over here. Again, sum equals sum of these three. Or the sum of these. Either way works. It doesn't really matter. All right. So let's go through and get something like the average value over here. I'm going to steal all of this again because it's all basically the same. All I'm going to do is add into this an ability to get an average. So I'm going to paste this up here. I'm going to add another piece of criteria, comma. I'm going to go ahead and grab the rooms column E. I'm going to copy this and just paste this over here and do E and E. That effectively gives me the next column over, which I know in my rooms tab is the areas reference. And notice this time I'm not prefixing with dash dash and putting it into a comparison. What I want to know is the absolute value. So if it has the right room, that's 1. If it has the right level, that's another 1. 1 times 1 is 1. And then it figures out what the area is on that row, and it multiplies that times the 1 that I've already got. So it gives me the proper area. Now I'm going to take the area across my entire project for this, and I'm going to divide this by my total units down here. So divide by this value right there. That'll give me my average of my room's square footage out here. Now, just because I want to be clever, I'm going to go ahead and do a round down. Just in case this happens to be a point value, I want to round that down to the nearest square foot in this case, or nearest whole square whatever value. And I'm also going to run a little bit of extra logic. If for some reason there's 0 rooms, I don't want this thing to freak out and do a divide by 0 up here. So I'm going to put an if statement. If B14 equals 0, then put 0. 0 square footage is my average. Otherwise, go ahead and do all of my math. Now this formula got a little bit long pretty quickly here. If you want to go back and take a look at the video that we're recording, you can certainly feel free to do that, rewind it, take a look at what I'm doing, decrypt or reverse engineer my formula. Too few arguments. No, I did not. Round down sum product is this value. I may not have put the, yes, I didn't put the, put this in the right spot maybe. B14 for the round. Oh, yes, I didn't give it enough information here for round down. Round down wants to know how many units I'm rounding down to, comma 0. That tells me round to the nearest whole unit, basically. Try this again. There we go, 172. So it's giving me 172 square foot average for my Studio One. If I drag this all the way across over here, I should get the average square foot values for each of my units. Ultimately, down here at the bottom, I'm going to do something very similar. What I'm going to do is just get rid of my divide by value here. So I'm going to steal all of this sum product. We'll hit enter. Oop, didn't mean to put a plus there. Enter, 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 enter. Equals, paste, go. That gives me the total. So 172 times 5 is 861. If I drag this all the way across, I should get, oh, look at that. Excel ran out of resources. Fantastic. It's still doing my math for me, but it ran out of memory, apparently, to be able to calculate something out here. That's weird. Why did that calculate at a 0? If H14, for whatever reason, that one doesn't look to be calculating. I might have screwed something up. H14 does not equal 0. Not sure why it doesn't like it. Whatever. We'll save it and we'll see if it works when I run this later on. I'm also going to run over here a sum of all of this to get a total square footage of all of my units across the entire project. So it'll take whatever math exists down here and it should sum that all up. So at this point, I'm going to save this, except for I want to make sure I come back and clear up some of my data over here. I'm going to replace the old one that I had. So let's unlock this spreadsheet again. Review, unprotect sheet. Password is the default password. Taking row 5 all the way down to row 94. We're going to delete all this, basically doing my little cleanup again, just like I had done before. Clear the contents here. I'm going to select this cell by default. I don't like random selections out here when I'm doing this. I like to be clean about it. So I'm going to select this cell by default. I've selected the top cell by default. You notice that all the information out here is all zeros. That's what I'm expecting it to be. I'm going to do a save as, and I'm going to replace that original template that I made. So replace that and save it. Replace the existing file. All right, so we're good to go. Now, let's see what happens in Revit when I rerun the settings file. I didn't change anything here. All I did was all my work over in Excel. All that math is done in Excel. So what I'm going to do is rerun my settings, load them, not from the project, load from file. I'm going to go ahead and load up my residential unit summary over here. When I open this up, it opens up the right spreadsheet. In this case, I saved here last. That's fine. It finds the fact that I've got a rooms tab out here. It wants to know if I want to overwrite it with my new information. Yes, I do. So it does that, and once it's done overwriting all that information over here after it extracts it all, back on my residential unit summary tab, after it's done the math, it should have gone through and calculated all my information out. You can see it's taking a little bit here as it's doing my calc. Still, for some reason here, it's giving me some issues with my number of floors unless I did something wrong with my math. That's entirely possible. But for some reason, it's not actually giving me my total down here. That's just me probably making a mistake with my formulas inside of here at some point. Oh, I bet you I didn't get my cell references set up right. What is this doing? A9, sum product B5, A9. No, that should be right. I'm not sure. I did something goofy. Not sure exactly what it was. But regardless, A9. Oh, I'm only looking at the one. That's probably what it's doing wrong. It's got zeros up here, so it's not giving me my true totals. It's giving me totals of just some of the information, potentially, with this formula. Either way, what I'm going to do is go ahead and, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and save this as it is. I'm going to show you how this works for the end game, because I'm running a little bit over time here. I'm going to reload a set of settings that I wrote the other day. Very similar. It's almost exactly the same. Load settings from file. Use my spreadsheet link settings that I wrote basically yesterday. I kind of modified this a little bit. This will do exactly the same thing. Same information pulled, level name area, or name level area. Replaces my spreadsheet. Same exact look and feel. I've kind of gone back through and tweaked some of the cell borders and things like that to make it look pretty. That's all I really did was modify this a bit. It fills all the information out. You can see when you get the math right, it actually does back the correct numbers, the correct calculations over here. I'm going to go ahead and save this out as a file name. I'm going to go ahead and replace this guy over here. It's got a date timestamp on it. I'll update this 23 something, 2016, whatever time. This is actually noon somewhere, so 12, whatever, and save this out. So I've saved that file out. Once I've saved that Excel spreadsheet out with all the calculations in it, I can use my final step, and that is bringing that back into Revit. So that's using the spreadsheet link, or sorry, schedule Excel tool here. This one brings that into Revit and lets me place it in my project. So I'm going to go ahead and add a link to that spreadsheet. So it's this guy right here, the one that is 2/23/12, whatever that time was actually probably somewhat wrong, but close enough. Open this up. Has my sheet right here. This is the one that I want to bring in. I won't change the name on it. I did in my example that I made for you, but I forgot to do this yesterday on mine. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. It's going to bring in that one schedule. There it is. It's told to automatically update. So if I run the Excel spreadsheet link tool and I update my data in the future, if I add more units or change square footages, refactor some of my floor plan, it'll just auto-update the math in the background. This will automatically update just like any other link in Revit does. So what it's done is made that spreadsheet out here. If I drop this onto a sheet in my project, let me make a brand new sheet. It doesn't really matter what sheet I use. If I drag and drop that spreadsheet out here, it looks just like a Revit schedule. It acts just like a Revit schedule. And ultimately, you've got all the information that's coming out of Excel into here. All the calculations show up. So the math is all happening on the Excel front. You can create whatever type of layout you want. Now, for me to get this to update, once again, I have to rerun spreadsheet link, have it re-overwrite that same file, and then this automatically updates. So if I was to, say, change any room in my floor plan, let's say level 2 to be a Studio 1. Let's make that change real quick just to kind of prove the point. Level 2, find any room out here. It doesn't really matter which one. We'll take this guy and call it a Studio 2. Studio 2. Okay, I don't even know what the square footage is. Frankly, I don't care. What I'm going to do is rerun my spreadsheet link. I'm going to load my settings from a file, grab the same settings. It pulls all my information out. You'll notice that this right now is about to say 2 right here. So there's 2, 2, and 2. There's 6 total. My total, my average will probably update a little bit. My total unit area will update a little bit here once this is done. Processing. There we go. Did I not change the right thing here? Oh, I said Studio 2, not Studio 1. My fault. Let me fix that. Studio 1. I want the right value that I talked about here. Rerun this spreadsheet link. See, it's easy to make these corrections now and update my information because I've got my settings saved. Makes this process super smooth and super streamlined. There was a question that popped up a little while ago. It says, are Revit Express tools available out of the box? And the answer to that is no. The Revit Express tools are an add-in that you install separately. If you want to know more about that, you go to, I believe, ctcexpresstools.com is the website, and you can find out more information about the Revit Express tools themselves. I'll pull that website up here for you in a minute so you can kind of see what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead and overwrite that spreadsheet once again. Give me a minute here as this fills itself out. Takes it a minute because it has to process all those formulas and run the lookups across the rooms. Doesn't take too long, but here we go. 2, 2, and 2, 6 total. Gives me a new update, gives me a new average up here for Studio 1. We'll kind of take a look at the comparison here in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and save this back out, overwrite the file that I'd already had, save this on top of it, replace it, give this a minute to save out. It's going to ask me if I want to open this up in Excel. I'm going to answer no. I don't want to open it up in Excel. All right, close this down. Now if I go back over here to my sheet, my unnamed sheet, notice how it hasn't quite updated yet? In Revit, normally when links update, if you're in Revit, you have to tell it to update. If I was to save this, shut it down, and open it back up, that's when the auto update happens. So let me go here to Schedule Excel. I'm going to pull this off to the side, and I'm going to just update this real quick. When I click Update, if you pay attention here, 510 is going to update, this is going to update, this will update, this will update. All that's going to update real quick here when I click Update. Reprocesses this. It might actually switch me over to that view also. It's possible it'll open up that view. Let's take a look here at what happens. Nope, didn't open up the view. It just updated it. So 471 is the new update, 2, 6, and the total new square footage value out there. All right, so pretty simple, straightforward, easy workflow. Once you have your formulas worked out, if you have any questions about formulas, you can feel free to give us a call. We'd love to consult with you a little bit and see if we can help you figure out what's best for your workflows. But hopefully this presentation today gave you some ideas of how you could leverage Excel in some of your workflows out there. Now, I've already watched for questions and answers here. We're almost out of time as it is. Actually, we're 10 minutes over. So what I'm going to do is just kind of close it out. And if you have questions in the future, write us. support@cadtechnologycenter.com. Give us a call, 866-941-1181. Rewatch this video in the future. This has been recorded today, so you can head up to our YouTube channel at CAD Technology Center, and feel free to go take a look at this and other spreadsheet link and schedule Excel type videos to give you some other ideas of how you can use these tools. But ultimately, thank you for attending.